Yeah, I think like for me, looking back on it, I think that I did the list as a way of coming to terms with my own. So like accepting my own past and my own
Mhm.
personal history. I think that like I think as a woman, like there's so much shame surrounding sex and as much as like I live in this feminist world and I have all these feminist conversations, like I'm still socialized in a way that teaches me to be ashamed about sex. So I think that what was really healing for me was to have all these conversations with these women, um, where they were talking openly about sex and kind of owning their own experiences. And I found that to for me. So it became more about the women and them like breaking stereotypes and talking to me and probably about my own, experience with my own sexuality. So I think that was probably my biggest takeaway from the project.
Don't get coronavirus in your heart.
Which do we?
It's the base. LOSO__G. Deacon, the engineer. And we have the greatest, Kirra Cheers.
Yeah.
Photographist, revolutionaryist.
What? You making up words?
This guy is so weird. Thank you. No, thank you for coming on and, just talking about the stuff that you do. I guess I don't know how exactly you describe yourself. I mean, I looked at your work and all that other stuff, and I guess an artist, maybe it's the simplest way to describe, I guess, your line of work.
Yeah, for sure. I describe myself as a photo-based artist. So while it starts with photography, I also direct and I write, and it's kind of like photography is the base, and then I expand it all from there. But that was quite the introduction. I'm not sure I can live up to that.
Nah, some of your work is pretty cool. You're actually, I did see that you're actually not from New York. You came over here from another part of the world.
Yeah, I'm Australian. So I've been in New York now for 9 years. The accent is a little bit softer, but I'm excited to maybe 10 years. I think I can claim myself as a New Yorker. I think that's the rule.
Really? That's the rule. Where from in Australia? What parts are you from?
I was born in Queensland, but I grew up for the most part in Australia, in Adelaide.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I've been to Australia before.
Oh, cool.
I've been waiting to drop that.
Whereabouts in Australia?
He couldn't wait.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't wait. I was like, "Where are you from?" I went to Sydney. I stayed primarily in a suburb right outside called Leichhardt, but I also went to the Gold Coast as well.
Okay, cool. I used to live 40 minutes down the coast from the Gold Coast in Byron Bay.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. That's awesome. I mean, I'd love to go back. It's the best 2.5 weeks of my life. Absolutely.
So why is Australia the most dangerous place in the world?
Yeah, everything can kill you. That's a true fact. Except for COVID, I think America is a far more dangerous place these days.
Yep.
Statement. Yeah, that's true though.
Message.
We can't bring up objectivity to here.
So, how'd you end up in New York? Did you just like conquer Australia? I guess they called you like the Young Creative of the Year.
Yeah.
And then you were like, "That's it. I'm done with that. Let me go to US of A to New York to try to see what's out there."
That's hilarious. Actually, I won the award when I was already living in New York. I moved into a house with this chick, and she randomly had this contact of this photographer in New York who I'd been like following for years and like really looked up to. And I just felt like it was like some kind of like weird destiny. She was like, they knew that someone had left the studio and there was a space to fill. So I emailed the photographer I was living in Byron Bay, which is like this obscure little small hippie town in Australia. So I emailed the guy in New York and my email was basically like, "I'm talented, you should hire me." And he said he agreed, and I jumped on a plane 2 weeks later and got the job. So that's how it happened.
Wow, sure.
Yeah.
Like a movie.
Yeah, it was really terrifying too. I didn't know anyone, like not one single person. And yeah, I'm happy with where I am now, but it's been a huge journey.
New York is
So when
probably
you-
the safest place in the world.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was a rough beginning. Like, just like, you know, the small like cultural things that, you know, you kind of take for granted, or like understanding coming, you know, growing up in America. Like, it just, you know, I was really like starting at nothing. I think Australians think that we have so much in common with Americans because, you know, like we speak English and we like consume so much American TV, but it really was like a steep learning curve.
New York
What
is
is
New York,
the-
though. New York is not like the rest of America. New York is
Right.
like its own country.
What is the
Yeah.
biggest example of that?
I think like the racial stuff like took me a long time to understand. You know, like I didn't even understand like the stereotypes, like a lot of things that people just take for granted. I just didn't know at all. Like I have a completely different perspective.
What racial stuff? No, I'm playing.
Right. Yeah. But even like just the aggressive nature of work and the work-life balance in America is completely different to Australia. In Australia, it's all about lifestyle. In America, it's all about work. I think my first birthday in America, my boss was a total asshole, and I worked with him the night before, so he knew it was my birthday the next day, and then I had plans. I was like going out with my girlfriends and everything, and he called me in for a portfolio review, and that day, like you like be here in an hour, like just as a power move, you know, because he was a dick.
Damn.
And so like I came in and like we got into this big argument because he was like, I want you to take photos like this. And I said, I don't want to take photos like that. You didn't like get me all the way from Australia just to copycat you. And then like I stormed out of the studio and I was crossing the road and I got hit by a car. And it wasn't bad. It was like he bumped my leg, but I like turned to him like, the fuck? And he wound down his window. It was like a cabbie. And he was like, don't touch my car, you fucking whore. And I was just like, wow, welcome to New York. Like,
Welcome to New York. Hey,
You're supposed to yell back, I'm working here.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm working here.
there's like Disney World in New York. We're neck and neck.
Yeah.
How disappointed were you by New York when you finally came here?
Oh,
Or was it all it was cracked up to be?
Right.
oh
Was it
no,
everything?
like I think that it happened so quickly. So like I always wanted to move to Paris. Like I wanted to do fashion photography in Europe, and I had never dreamt about New York. So I really like had no preconceptions about what it was going to be. But New York a disappointment? No way. No, like New York is like kind of a crazy place to be now, but like I love New York and I work in nightlife. Like I feel like I see the best of it, you know, like not a disappointment at all.
Haha, DK.
No, man, it's New York, man. I was just testing her just to see if she's well on her way to earning the New York card.
Oh yeah, that was part of the test.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that was good.
You said photography. What was it? Writing and
Yeah. So
What was
my last project, the list, someone gave me a list of everyone they've ever had sex with. And then I went back and I contacted everyone on the list and interviewed them about their experiences in the hope of painting a picture about who this person could be as seen through the eyes of their former lovers. So it kind of became this like coming of age story, like as, you know, he grew up and the people that passed through his life and what they had to say about him. And anyway, so I did that. I photographed everyone. I published the interviews and I published the entire project as a book. And then I turned it into a show. So I directed the play, and we did 2 runs. They were both sold out. My final run was at the Box. So yeah, I take the writing title. I've also written a pilot for a TV show that we're hoping to production maybe sometime next year.
That's cool. And that was the project, the list, it was an extension of your first project, sort of, or was it sort of like a spiritual successor to Tinderella, or?
Yeah, I think in a way, like I think because Tinderella opened up so many conversations and I think I started like thinking about my own list and like how people would perceive me. So
she's like, oh damn, I can't believe now.
Yeah, I
What did he say?
still don't have a clue like how people, because I think it's a surprise. Like you'd be surprised how the dialogue people have about you. I know for the guy who I did his list, it was a surprise. Like even small things, like he was like really shy in college, and I think he had sex with like 3 chicks in college, and all the girls were like, "Oh, he was the babe!" Like all the girls wanted him, and he was just like, "Damn!" Like I had no idea. So I think there's like a huge disconnect between like how you see yourself and others, how others see you. And I'm like pretty introverted, so I find that really interesting.
Yeah, DK, what would your list be about?
Nah, we're not talking. This episode isn't about me.
Yeah.
I mean,
all good things.
I mean, that's interesting that you say that because wow, that's just coincidence. I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and they were actually, the whole sort of overarching idea was about being self-aware and how almost everyone thinks that they're self-aware in the eternal sense that they, that they know how they think and they know how they appear to other people, but how very like a small percentage of us actually have like a decent amount of self-awareness. And it had a lot of interesting insights. It was like, I don't know, a lot of counterintuitive things. I don't want to get too deeply into it, but it just reminded me of that. And one of those things is that introspection actually doesn't lead to greater self-awareness like one would assume. It's really, really interesting. Made me think of that. That's cool. I mean, what insights did you get from, exploring your own list and seeing other people's? Like any general overarching things, or maybe something unique to you?
Yeah, I think like for me, looking back on it, I think that I did the list as a way of coming to terms with my own. So like accepting my own past and my own personal history. I think that like, I think as a woman, like there's so much shame surrounding sex, and as much as like I live in this feminist world and I have all these feminist conversations, like I'm still socialized in a way that teaches me to be ashamed about sex. So I think that what was really healing for me was to have all these conversations with these women, where they were talking openly about sex and kind of owning their own experiences, and I found that to be really healing for me. So it became more about the women. And them like breaking stereotypes and talking to me, and probably about my own, ability. So I think that was probably my biggest takeaway from the project.
Okay. And your projects in general, because I know you mentioned it, having a healing effect on you. Is that sort of one of the motivations of you creating art in general, or is that just happened to be just the one-off?
Yeah, no, I think that a part of that, I wouldn't say like it's a conscious motivation, but I insert myself into all my projects. Like I usually take on this like role of the narrator. Recently this year while in quarantine, I did a project called Seclude in the Nude, where I photographed people during quarantine when we were in the lockdown phase, naked in their windows. And I was like, I did an interview a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, oh wow, like it's so impressive that you were able to be so productive during a time of like so much anxiety, and how a lot of like artists struggle to be productive during such times. I was like, oh, like that was just my way of coping. Like this is how like I made myself feel better by like creating art and making things. So like probably just as a general sense of like making art and making things, like that's my happy place. That's where I feel good.
Okay, that's good. I don't know anymore. I think because it's interesting, particularly when I see artists in, no matter what medium they express it through, there's always some sort of like therapeutic element,
Right.
I wonder, I don't know. It's just kind of like I'm thinking out loud, but I wonder if it's actually sort of I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but I wonder if all art sort of stems from that. If it's just like a means of like therapy, if it really stems from that, even though it's maybe not the conscious motivation. I wonder if that sort of expression if that's like the underlying thing, you know?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I think there's definitely an aspect of like therapy to all art. There's also like a large link between creativity and mental illness. So there's that as well.
Okay.
Oh, my fault. Go ahead.
No. Go. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna ask about. And sorry if you mentioned it when I kind of like when the FBI took me off for like a little bit. But what inspired you to also do the Free the Nipple project? And then I also wanted to ask after that. There's obvious a lot of your projects are very sexual, and I was just curious, why that focus as well.
Right. So I did the Free the Nipple project because Trump signed in legislation called SESTA Foster, which was meant to combat sex trafficking, but in reality just like censored like sexual erotic content across the board. And that included on like Instagram. So like in 1 month after SESTA was signed in, my hosting company for my website lawyered up and took my website down with like no warning at all. Just like one day the website was gone. And then my Instagram was taken down for a period of time, despite the fact that I like follow all their bullshit like guidelines. What else? And so I just got like really frustrated after. It's just been like a process of like years of dealing with censorship. Even the first time I couldn't print the book. The first printer I went to, they wouldn't print my book because it had sexual content. And I just got like really frustrated with just continually hitting roadblocks with censorship. In particular, it's a very American thing. You're all very like sexually conservative here.
Weirdly, like this is the fucking 70s. The fuck? Why are you doing shit like that?
It's so weird. I mean, not to like interject, but it's like we're so accustomed to like violence, but when it comes to anything remotely sexual, it's like this weird Puritan thing.
Right,
it's like yeah, they'll show like even on network television shows like they'll show like RoboCop, right? Like they won't they'll censor it somewhat, but they'll show heads exploding, people getting shot up, right? But anyone shows like even a revealing skirt, it's like wow, like holy shit, it's so weird. I don't know.
Yeah, it's true, and I feel like for like the nipple thing is really weird. Like the breast is okay, but it's just like specifically the life-giving nipple that people take exception to. It's
nipples
just
are
like,
dangerous.
It's just so stupid. And the fact that like male nipples are okay, but female nipples, like I just thought it was really ridiculous. So I created this project to like point out how ridiculous the double standard was. And I think that like it really resonated with people because it's not me. There's so many people that are just like frustrated by these, these censorship laws. I think one of the big takeaways from the project for me was like everyone's like, oh, this is a violation of free speech, blah blah blah, and like while I agree, like people don't realize that free speech laws don't apply to private organizations, which is social media. So it's like another reason we need to have like social media reform so that they can't do these kinds of things.
Would you consider your work activism?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely activism for sure. I think the people that and like speaking for and the community I work with like would consider activism also.
And why like this specific I guess style of art? Like how did you get into the art world and decide like, hey, this is what I want to do and this is how I want this is what I want my style of art to be like?
Right. Yeah, look, just like a huge journey. Why did I pick erotic art? I think that there's not one simple answer to that. I think that touching back on some of the things I talked about before, it's just like a way of me rebelling, because it was always like sex was the one thing, like as a woman, like I'm not supposed to either like want or have. And I'm certainly not supposed to talk about it. So for me, this was like my way of like pushing people's buttons, and I think rebelling against all these things that I had, grown up thinking were appropriate. Yes. I also think that, like I'm a huge feminist about equality. So I think that, sex and gender are such a huge part of that conversation. And this was just like my way of going about it. Also, like, like women are beautiful, and I like to photograph naked women. So like there's also that, just from an aesthetic point of view, like it appeals to me visually. So I think it went in hand with like what I was trying to achieve, what I wanted my art to do, and then also like the things that I was naturally drawn to as an artist and like to photograph.
Mm-hmm. How do you?
Women are beautiful.
I'm curious, because one thing you came from Australia, you came to America. Do you find a difference in how your art and your message is received between the two cultures? Is there like a difference?
Yeah, massive. That's a really good question. So Australia is also quite conservative, but in a different way to America. Mm-hmm. When I first released my breakthrough project, Tinderella, and just to give some backstory for the listeners, Tinderella, I photographed, this is when Tinder was like first becoming a thing. It was like, and people were using it as like online dating as the primary meeting people. So I photographed 17 Tinder dates at the conclusion of our date, and it was meant to open up a conversation about how we connect in a digital world. And so I released the project and went viral all over the world. It was really crazy. I wasn't prepared for it at all. And like while I was getting these press requests, the Sydney Morning Herald, which is one of our largest newspapers in Australia, reached out, asked me for an interview. They wanted to publish me like in double-page spread in the newspaper, big photo of my face, everything. I was like, oh my God, so exciting. Like it was the first time like the press in Australia had reached out, and I was excited, like, my family and friends would be able to see what I was doing over here in New York. And Tinder hadn't come to Australia yet. So like maybe a few people are on it, but like not really. Like it was like, oh, they thought it was like a sex app that people had. Yeah.
That was
I think that Tinder's gone through, like, I think it was initially more a way of meeting people, and now it's maybe just a little bit more like Grindr. But I still think it's a cool way to meet people like outside of your social circle that you would never usually come in contact with. So
you gotta do a Grinderella.
Sorry?
You gotta do a Grinderella.
A Grinderella. Right? Oh, that would be far more X-rated, I think. Anyway, I had this interview with the reporter, and I just didn't like his questions. Like it was like, oh, who was the best kisser? Like all this stuff. And I'm like, you're missing.
Oh, yeah, that's so corny. Oh man.
Yeah. So it's like, you've really missed the point of the project. And I'm like, I'm not going to answer your questions. Like I ended the call and I was like, oh man, like I felt so good about myself. Like I had, I'd stayed true to what the project was meant to be about. I hadn't like given in just for the opportunity of the press. Anyway, like he called back and he's like, oh, my editor wanted me to have another go. So we did the interview again, and it was like the same kind of questions. So I said the same thing. I basically shut him down, and I was like, what, we're done with that. Anyway, they ran the article and just like fictionalized it. So it was.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So it ran with like a huge picture of my face on this double page spread in Australia and the quote was, American men open doors, Australian men open zippers. And I had said that American men were tourists and Aussie men were like just in it to get laid. And it was just like complete bullshit. And it was like
little do they know they're both in it to get laid. Yeah. Little do they know.
They both open zippers.
Yeah. But it was, you know, and I had a lot of that, and that was like my first experience with the press and
Men.
and yeah. and it was just really destabilizing, and I felt like I had, you know, I think, you know, if I had been, I was only 24 at the time when the project came out. And I think now I would like lawyer up and know what to do. But I was so young, and this was like such a large publication. I just like didn't know how to, I just felt like a victim and didn't know how to cope with it. So it was a really good learning experience. But I did give like, I have given, you know, quite a big speech before and like named and shamed the journalists. And so it felt like I got like a little fuck you back, you know. Yeah. So yeah, I think at the time, like back to your, like looping back to your question, yes, like Australia just wasn't there then. I think now if the project came out, like the response would be completely different. But at the time, like socially, like they just hadn't got to that place with online dating, and it was still like very taboo. So they were basically like, look at this slut in like New York. And also the idea of dating multiple people at once, like you just wouldn't do that in Australia.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah. I don't know.
I was taught in New York that everyone's dating 3 people, like someone like they're currently dating, someone they used to date, and someone they're aspiring to date.
Whoa, slow down.
Where's this bullshit?
Wait a minute.
Yeah, right. Right.
Who the fuck said this? No.
I think in New York, there's just like so many different people and lifestyles. It's like you could ask somebody what, you know, let's say, for example, their dating life, what it's like, and it could be completely different because, you know, I mean, you like, for example, you have people who let's say that didn't necessarily grow up in New York, who maybe have a more worldly liberal view, who are like out, experience things. And then you have a lot of people who like grew up here, you know, who are kind of, you know, New York is seen as like a liberal place, but there are a lot of people who grew up in conservative families, who grew up with conservative values, who just experience something completely different. So I think, you know, there's all sorts of like versions.
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. So I'm guessing, have you had any other interactions with your with Australian media since? And I'm guessing it's been more nuanced, progressive, more receptive.
Yeah, I think that was my worst experience, and it's kind of only been positive since. So I think I after that came out, like I won the Australian Creative of the Year award for photography. Yes. So
she's like, yeah, I conquered Australia. I'm done. New York.
No, not at all. But I couldn't do the type of work that I do in Australia. Like it just wouldn't be possible. Like I need like all the craziness that is New York to make it happen. It could only happen here. So another reason I love New York.
Okay. What projects are there any projects that aren't, you know, necessarily that you have listed or necessarily you don't have public yet? Is there anything that you're working on in particular?
Yeah, lots of things. Yeah. Yeah. So this has been like, I lost like, you know, 80 to 90% of my like paid gigs with Corona, which is kind of bad, but also like a blessing in many ways. Like I've just been able to focus on my art. And so I've actually had, despite everything, like a really productive year. So I did, I started off the year with Seclude and the Nude, which I mentioned. And then I also produced 3 online burlesque shows at the start of like the whole lockdown period, which is really cool. And then the host, that chick, Bess, that's her burlesque name. I collaborate with her a lot. She's hosted a lot of my shows. She did the Freely Nipple box as well. We actually wrote a pilot together for a TV show. called Telephone. And it's about connection in the digital world and the spread of misinformation. And we're really shopping it around now, hoping to get that produced and made sometime next year. So I'm really excited about that. And that was my first time writing for TV. And I love the experience. And I'm really excited to go in that direction further with my career in the future. And then I also am working on a project I'm really excited to release. It doesn't have a name yet. I don't know what it's called, but I've been photographing. It's similar to Seclude and the Nude. I've been photographing performers in shutdown venues, performance venues. So like nightclubs, theaters, stuff like that. And all the images are accompanied by a quote, like detailing their experiences. So for a lot of performers, there's been this like huge loss of identity because their performance and who they are as a performer is so intertwined with who they are as a person, and to not have that outlet is really hard, you know. So like they've all had like different experiences. While a lot of people have been able to go back to work, like they're still at like nothing, and there's no kind of end in sight. So some of the clubs are talking about opening up maybe in, you know, next year in the summer, but it really depends on when they get the vaccine. So the performers have been hit really hard. And I'm excited to release that project. And I think I shot the whole thing on film, and I think it's my best work. Yeah. So if you have any ideas for titles, I'm all ears.
Practicing in a pandemic.
No? That's cool.
Pandemic practices.
Yeah, I don't know, but I've been having these like great conversations with the venue owners, and a lot of them are saying if federal funding doesn't come through by the end of the year, that 80 to 90% of the bars, clubs, restaurants in New York will shut by 2021, the start of.
That's
I'm just saying,
crazy.
Like, isn't
that's
that
insane?
A terrifying statistic? Like, can you imagine New York?
That's thousands
like,
and thousands.
Yeah. There's a lot of places.
So that's like people are talking about hoping they can make it to the end of the year. So even if like you know Biden comes in and like with all this like federal funding, like when is that? February? It's might be too late for a lot of places. So. Yeah. I think that's just this wild idea of like New York, like being with 80 to 90% of like bars and clubs closed. That's crazy. That's mayhem, you know.
No, it's going to be like prohibition. It's going to be like New York in the 20s. It's going to be prohibition, bro. It's going to be. It's going to be.
Let's start throwing parties.
Right.
Word.
It's good. It's
I'm
crazy.
gonna cut this off.
Mad speaking.
It's crazy because that's what makes New York New York. It's like that's why a lot of people have been leaving, or at least people with means, right? Like people obviously who don't have means, like they're not going anywhere. But that's like the appeal. The appeal of New York is like you deal with all the bullshit, you deal with the crowd, you deal with the subway, you deal with the trash, you deal with the crazy, you deal with whatever the fuck because you have all of this life, like institutions, nightlife, restaurants, exactly. It's always something to do. It's interesting, and when you take that away, it's like
what do you have? What do you have to do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. You have to save us, the artists. You, all of you out there, the spoken gent, everyone, spoken word, everybody. It's up to you. You have to.
The writers, the Writers Guild over here.
The writers.
When you need actors, we're funny, right? If you make a comedy.
Oh no, we're done. Okay. We're if New York has to depend on us, we're fucked. But
the podcast not going to save New York.
I think it's a really good point. Like there was at one point in quarantine, I was just like, why am I here? You know, like all the things, all the reasons I was in New York, like I felt like they had been taken away. But then, like, you know, I'm not sure I feel like that anymore. When it came down to it, I think I'm here for the people. I'm here for the people that New York attracts. And, like, I'm still making things and I still have that, like, crazy, you know, network of people around me. And that's why, like, I'm going to stick it out. But you're right. It is the artists that will save us because the rebirth is going to be amazing. New York might get fucked up but, like, can you imagine, you know, it's going to open the doors for all these people, like, it's going to be like New York in the 80s, you know, it opens up. It's going to be like gritty and underground. And there's going to be like the nightlife is going to go through this whole new rebirth of, I think that's going to to be kind of exciting.
She's like, it's going to be the Warriors in real life.
It's gonna be the Warriors.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. The Warriors.
That's dope. Do you have like an end goal to like all your work? Are you gonna open up a studio? You're gonna have a film studio as well? Like, you know, what's your vision?
And what beer you drinking?
You know what? I don't know. Eric bought it for me. He's the beer nerd. So I'm no clue.
Okay, we need to have him on next. That's
Yeah.
that's up my alley. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. He like brews his own and does the whole thing.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah. Definitely. I talked about, you know, really loving the experience of writing for TV, and I also loved the experience of directing. So I would like to continue like writing and directing and making my own stuff. Also, you know, we talked about the rebirth. We are looking at possibly getting a space now, like while cheap, looking into like a cheap 5-year rental, and then maybe opening my own venue with some other people. So it'd be like a performance space / nightclub. So I would love to have that kind of thing where I had, you know, like a venue, and I basically like creative direct it, but then have someone else to like manage it from the business perspective. So I have like those two things as kind of like the end goal for me.
That's a good name for a project or a venue. Rebirth. That's a good.
Rebirth. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Oh wow! Fuck my name.
Royalties.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, I mean, do you envision yourself in New York for a prolonged period of time, or do you expect yourself, you know, going elsewhere, other countries, you know, elsewhere in the United States? Do you have any plans?
Yeah, that's another really good question. I love New York, and New York will always be home. I'll always have a base here, but I was planning on exploring Berlin this year to set up a second base. It makes so much sense. They're like so much more sex positive. My work is received really well in Berlin. I already have a network over there. I collaborate with an erotic book company who publish my photos. So I've been able to like, you know, make friends over the internet and build like this community. And I was really excited to go over there and kind of meet them in person and start like forging in real life relationships. I don't think it would be forever, and but I would like to be able to like bounce back and forth between New York and Europe. But I do think that New York is like my forever home. I just don't like to be here all year. It's nice to have like a break from New York and then like come back and love it again.
When it's hot. You only want to be here when it's
yeah, you know what? Little Aussie girls do not cope with like winter at all. Like,
oh man.
Every year I get better at it. I realize I just need to drink more whiskey throughout winter. Like that's my coping.
If it's cold, it'll warm you up.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like how much daylight are we saving?
Yeah, I used to go back to Australia. It's summer in Australia when it's winter.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so hot. It was so hot when I went.
Yeah. So I used to go back every year and just like work on my tan for a couple of months and then come back to New York. But yeah, it's harder and harder to get away for that kind of time now. And now this winter, this is probably going to be the first winter I'm going to have to like do the whole thing here, and like I won't be able to like escape anywhere. Yeah, I mean I could, but I don't feel comfortable traveling at the moment.
Yeah, you get a proper New York winter, but the winters have been like warm over the past few years. There hasn't been like snow and stuff. Like it's been unusually. I don't know. Maybe it's probably climate change and
global warming.
Yeah, our I mean, I guess it's good for us. Our grandkids are fucked, but like you know,
we're gonna go out in crazy glory.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there might not even be a Manhattan in 50 years, but like, you know, that's interesting. You don't seem too excited. You're kind of like, yeah, but like, no.
Yeah, no, I'm like winter scares me. I'm a little bit like fearful of going into like a full winter in New York with like no reprieve. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Like school.
It builds character.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm ready for it. You know what? Like I'm coming into my 10th year in New York. Like I just have to suck it up and do like a full winter here so I can claim that New Yorker status.
When I met Kirra, she said she can guess anybody's kink.
I did. You know what? I did say that. I think somebody else said that about me.
Oh, you can't backtrack. Oh no, come on.
Maybe.
So this is the artist corner. We got the kink guesser. We're gonna have Kirra guess your. Oh man.
But I guess just to wrap up the night and stuff like that. I mean, you're clearly doing stuff, man. Just remember, in a few years, we're gonna hit you back up for that next interview. We got exclusive rights on all your interviews forever and ever. You hear it here on the base.
Yeah, don't forget about the little guy. She's gonna be
absolutely.
she's gonna have a Netflix documentary. She's gonna be on like the BBC and shit. Like fucking.
I've already done the BBC. We're good.
And see, look at that. Look.
Like real sex, take one.
But yeah, just any last words to any aspiring artists out there, people that are maybe having a creative block, or just finding themselves stuck through all of this COVID.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like no excuses. Like this is such a good time that you have to create, and like. I don't know, maybe it's hard to hear, but like if you're not using this opportunity to make things, like maybe you're just not cut out for it. Like it's hard enough like out there, like, and it's so competitive that if you're not getting it done now, you're never going to get it done.
Facts.
Artists, you got to bootstrap, bro. No excuses. No excuses.
Go hard or go home.
No excuses. Got to hit the gym, lift weights, do a montage, and then have a whole painting.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Thanks so much, guys. That was awesome.
No, that was. Thank you. I think.
Thank you for being born.
I think as we, I don't know. The more episodes we do, the more the more diverse set of guests that we have. And, I can't wait for all this shit to like blow by, because we used to have like in person,
right.
We used to have people come over, used to cook, drink, stuff like that. And then, we had a green screen or whatever. And I can't.
So you mean I missed out on the drinks and the dinner? Is that
yeah. And we can cook.
The base. Oh yeah. We got the base chicken. We have, all types of.
Yes, we can.
We have branded food. We have branded food because we can cook. But
I should take a rain check on that one then.
Yeah, no, I just can't wait for at least things to clear up enough where we could at least have like, gathering in particular, like a meeting of artists. Because we had a lot of artists and creatives, and I don't know, it's fascinating to me because I'm not even a little bit creative. I'm not fucking creative at all.
To do this, it's just crazy. Just how y'all find the inspiration. Your work is pretty dope. I like your little stories with your pictures and stuff like that. But I don't know, it's just crazy. There's so many ways that artists kind of just go about just doing their thing. So many different ways to like express what they're trying to do. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of our moment though. Like we should be.
Oh man, yeah. I wish, I like consuming art. I just wish I could create it. That would be cool. But then I have to be artistic. Yo, don't lie to me, bro.
Maybe you just haven't found your thing yet.
Bro, I'm 47. I haven't drawn anything since I was a child. It's not happening.
Oh, you know what? I can't draw at all. So maybe you just find your outlet.
I create some art. I actually have some art pieces here.
No, he actually does. He paints a little bit.
Yeah, but I'm not like professional. Like I don't. My thing doesn't look anything like I'm not gonna embarrass myself yet.
Well, I'll put it like this. And this is gonna sound ridiculously ignorant, but I've been to art museums. I've seen art, bro. Your art is better than a lot of it, and I know.
God, but so much art is like bullshit. When I
it is.
It is, yeah, for sure. When I go to the MoMA, I play a game called. There's a term in Australia called wank or like wanker. Like if you call something,
I love it, wankers,
fucking wankers.
Yeah, so like
she's like, who's a wanker?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I play a game at the MoMA.
Yeah, I'm gonna play that game in life every day.
Art versus wank, and so like you have to like judge the piece. Is this art or is it just wank? So I mean, it's like, is it art or just bullshit that someone's like intellectualized to try and make it art, you know? So like that's real, you know.
So like, what is bullshit art?
So what is bullshit art?
Yeah, like to you, what is, because you're an artist. Like to me, sometimes I'll see something and, you know, it could be abstract and that maybe I could understand it, but it's like, it just seems like some art is just something that's smacked together, and it's because it has maybe some sort of outside story or maybe some sort of like, it's like I don't know, it almost seems like an insular group of people just anoint something. Oh yeah, this is art. Rather than, rather than, a regular person not being able to like, understand it. I get some things maybe like above like my head or whatever, but it just seems pretentious sometimes,
Absolutely. And like, I think you're right on the money. It's just because like a few people decide it is like, it doesn't necessarily mean it is quality. I went to the MoMA like a few years ago and they had just like it was just two pieces of like wood, like two logs. One was painted green and the other one was pink. And the green one was the color that would represent the time when the aliens would come. And the pink one was the color of women's perfume. And I was like, yeah, this is a load of wank.
I need to be in the MoMA.
Yeah.
See, now I have inspiration. Now I can be in the fucking MoMA. That's crazy.
Exactly. Yes.
That's crazy because I have colored pens, mad different colors. I have paper. I can say this means, I don't know, it's the Big Bang, it's the universe, just like anything, any bullshit story, I could do that.
You underestimated yourself. This could be like a whole new thing for you.
Oh my God, we should create a page of like bullshit art, but like ironically pass it as like really deep shit. That would be
I've wanted to do this for the longest time and like create like really like bullshit art. And then pretend I was really serious about it and see like how many people I can get on board with that.
That's the wave. That's the
new project.
I could be like the Borat of the art world.
You should do that. You should do that because it's like it makes sense for someone who could actually produce actual art to do that. Because if I do it, it's just like whatever. Like who the fuck is this guy? But it's like if someone has like an alter ego. Like a Colbert character where like you don't break character when you're in it, but you can actually create art. That would be dope.
Yeah, I might do that. That sounds pretty fun.
That sounds pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down.
All right, I think I have to go. I think dinner's ready. But thank you so much, guys, and please let me.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for coming on.
When it comes out.
Will do. Take it easy.
Bye, girl.